Remember the old days of idle heroes? Yeah, I know I still have some nostalgia for that, and it's kind of in a way rose-tinted glasses because I know I've brought up this topic a couple different times in the past, but I've seen a lot of people recently on Discord, Reddit, and stuff like that talking about how they feel like they enjoyed the game in the old days better. But when they remember what a lot of the systems were like, I feel like it's more or less a testament of time, because I think overall the genre of idle and AFK games has gone down a little bit, especially with games like Genshin, Withering Waves, all those like more interactive gacha style games where there's something you can constantly be grinding, you're actively playing it, not just watching things happen. They're just as pay to win overall if you want to really max stuff out, but it's more free to play friendly if you just want to enjoy a story. And I kind of want to take today and be like, remember the old days? Remember how much this kind of sucked? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling like, because I feel like I've already given it a fair shake of like, I wish things were older, but at the same time, you forget what really sucked back then. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Let's jump right into it. Do you actually remember how long it took to build your first E5 hero? Even on an account like this where we have a bunch of them, it used to take a painfully long time. If you were a free-to-play player, like how many free-to-play servers do we have now? We've had what? We've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different iterations of complete free-to-play accounts. Our newest one getting insane progression, making our first E5 hero literally in like 2 weeks, getting this Eloise built. But then it's like you just start building more heroes, you're working on tenants. It's a much faster paced game. In the old days, I think I built my first E3 hero at the time over the course of like 4 or 5 months, and then adding on, like, it was crazy to think that taking a hero from this E3 and adding 2 more 10-star foods on, not let alone 2 additional hero copies, which was not easy to come by back in the day. Hero copies were a premium. Profit over events were a premium. It took so much time and effort to build that like it would take you another 2 months just to get from an E3 to an E5 hero, maybe even longer if you weren't spending. I remember back in the day I was like, yeah, you can build 1 9-star hero a month, essentially, sometimes a 10-star depending on if you're using resources or not. Yes, you heard that correct. You could build a 10-star a month back in the day, which means building this hero up to E5 would have taken so much longer. Beyond that, once you started building your first hero, you were pigeonholed into that hero, which brings me up to topic number 2. There were really only 1 or 2 options of heroes you pick. Like, even nowadays, there's more variety, I feel like. In the old days, you either kind of picked, like, once E3, E5 was coming out, you either picked to build Valkyrie, which did amazing in PvP and a lot of different game modes. However, she scaled horribly in Sealand. Or you kind of went the route of either building a Cthulhu, which, yes, Cthulhu was absolutely amazing. He had healing on him, which was really good. He had burn synergies. And the best part about him, where is it? He cannot be burn or bled, which meant he was a hard counter to Valkyrie, but he just didn't do things as well. Most people, I feel like, went the King Barton route. That was your first E3 and then E5 hero, mainly because, well, back in the day, you know how we have all these crazy amounts of Sealand all the way up to 40 and everything? Getting to this right here, Sealand 10 was probably one of the hardest goals and most important goals to get to. If you wanted the easiest Sealand 10, you built King Barton up to E3, and then you had a 10-star Berea. Yes, you heard me correctly. A 10-star Berea was actually pretty important to have because of the additional damage he provided, because King Barton sometimes just didn't have enough damage to get the job done. And when you look at all the old heroes, the only other strategy was building like multiple scaries. Like, I had 3 to 4 E5 scaries, and pushing to Sealand 20 eventually became possible when they expanded that out. But it was so difficult to do. It was one of the hardest things possible, because you got to look at all the other heroes back then. There weren't a big selection of really good heroes. Horus, you think back and like, oh, but Barry, Horus was an amazing hero. Horus got buffed very late 2019, I think. It was either 2019 or 2020 that all the heroes that were older got a little bit of a revamp. Before that, Horus was an okay hero. He wasn't the powerhouse he was after that, and it was really sad because everybody was kind of hoping King Barton would get the same treatment Horus did. King Barton did not and stayed out of the meta, whereas Horus kind of made a comeback, which was pretty cool. When you talk about the Fortress faction, there really wasn't much to talk about except Penny. Penny was the go-to, and if you did not crit with Penny, it sucked. And back in the day, it was really hard to get additional crit chance on her, so the RNG for Sealand was absolutely insane. Going through Sealand period was really difficult until I think really one hero came out and really changed the meta up. Inosuke did an amazing job solo by himself to get like Sealand 20 done. At the time of his release, he was the easiest Sealand to finish. And then of course along came after that Eloise, and Eloise basically changed the meta forever. It made the meta essentially stale for 3+ years. Yeah, that's the one downside. The meta has been completely stale. The other thing I want you to remember back on is the only endgame that existed, technically doesn't exist anymore. Crystal Crown League. Yes, Crystal Crown League PvP was the testament, the only endgame mode we had at all. We didn't have the Void, we didn't have any of these things. Even Sealand wasn't even that big of a deal because big whale spenders would, you know, go towards just ton of light heroes. Dark heroes kinda sucked after E5. There was a brief time that Dark Arthanol was really good just because of the way that her ability preemptive defense worked, that for every 3% of max HP she lost, she increased her damage and energy, which basically meant if she takes a bunch of hits, procs Unending Will, and then uses her active skill, she just obliterated enemy teams or petrified them, which is really cool. But literally the peak of the meta back then was having, where is he? 2 frontline Asmodel and 4 backline Ada. That was like the peak of the meta, because you have to remember too, auras were a thing, so you had to use these weird combos. You even had to do light and dark, which was 3 light heroes, 3 dark heroes, a rainbow aura, which was really cool, where your team had 1 additional hero. Whereas nowadays you just jump into combat, like you just jump into into anything, you chuck any combination of heroes in, you get these stat bonuses if 6 heroes are on the team. Old days, you couldn't do that, so you really had to hyper focus and pay attention to exactly what hero you built in every single faction. You would normally build a Horus, you'd probably move over to here, build a Penny, you'd come over here, a lot of people would pick Cruz as the support hero, or King Barton as the damage dealer. You'd pick either Heartwatcher or Valkyrie, I feel like back in the day. Over here, the main option I think was Dark Arthandal. Until like Amun Ra came out, you could also go like Aspen, which was like neither here nor there. And then of course you had like an Asmodel or an Ada. It's funny because if you remember back to those things, some of them you might actually think of fondly, like the Rainbow Aura. But at the end of the day, like the only endgame there was PvP. Nowadays we have like Void Vortex, Void Campaign, and while those are still very whale heavy, it gives you PvE goals to have and not just pure PvP, which is I think one of the positives to the game now is endgame is purely PvE based. It really doesn't matter too much about PvP. PvP rewards aren't anything to even really talk about most of the time. But let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys enjoy this one. Just a little throwback to the old school of Idle Heroes, and I'll see you guys next time.